Today we're going to talk about exactly what foods you should be eating to help regrow your hair. And this is not about taking another supplement. This is talking about your foods. There's something I stumbled on recently that's actually very interesting. I'm going to share with you. It's from this paper that I read that had something in it that just jumped out at me that I've never heard before. And then I did a deep dive into this one single amino acid, and I found some amazing things. Okay, so I'm going to share that with you today. So I think most people know that hair is made out of protein, and you would think if you just eat enough protein, your hair would come back, but that doesn't always work. In this published paper, it went through various deficiencies that were found on certain percentage of people with hair loss. And then I get to this one amino acid that was deficient in over 90% of people with alopecia. And this amino acid is called histidine. And no, I would not recommend going out and just getting it and taking it, because I think it's really important to understand why you might be deficient, if at all. It's not an abundant amino acid, but histidine is a precursor to histamine, okay, which is involved in immune reactions, allergies, inflammation, healing, things like that. If you're deficient in histidine, you could be anemic because the need for that amino acid to build red blood cells. It's great for your skin if you have eczema or any type of dermatitis. If you take too much of it, you can get premature ejaculation, so that's one interesting function. It's going to be directly involved in making the keratin protein of your hair to make your hair strong and more hydrated, as well as regulating the copper and zinc, okay, that the hair needs as well. And if someone is also taking medications or drinking alcohol, that amino acid can be a lot lower. If a person doesn't have the right stomach acids, they're not going to be able to break down and extract that amino acids from the food that they're eating. You're going to have indigestion, gas, bloating. Any of those, the solution is to start taking something called betaine hydrochloride, which is an acidifier. Now, here's the interesting part about this whole discussion. In order for you to use histidine, there are certain cofactors. B6, which is pretty easy to get, the right copper and zinc ratios, which is not as easy to get, and folate. Folate is normally in dark leafy green vegetables, but if you're carnivore, and you don't eat vegetables, where are you getting your folate? Well, it just so happens that the most folate is in liver. But let's say that you're not on carnivore and you're just eating regular foods, but you don't consume a lot of dark leafy green vegetables. That could be another reason why you're deficient. Also, if you're taking a supplement with folic acid, which is not the natural source of this vitamin B9, that can potentially even inhibit this conversion into the active form, because you're going to use up a lot of the enzyme that is needed to make this conversion. And as a side note, there is a chemo drug called methotrexate. And the way this drug works is simply by blocking folate. You see, folate increases the synthesis or the reproduction of your cells. And if you block that using this anti-folate drug, you can stop the growth of something. The problem is you don't want to completely stop the growth of all your cells, the healthy ones too, because you have a lot of side effects. So they have to give you a certain folate to counter some of the side effects. If you're deficient in folate, your damage to your DNA goes way up. In fact, it could be comparable to radiation damage to your DNA. So this is why folate is so important in protecting the DNA in the mitochondria, and also to help prevent against cancer as well, because cancer is damaged mitochondria. So it's important to have this folate work, okay, or to have a sufficient amount so you can have this histidine work, so then you can counter any potential hair loss. Let's say, for example, you go on a prolonged fast and you start losing your hair. It probably means that you're not ready for it, or it's not good for your body, because when you keto adapt and you actually start burning fat, you should feel wonderful. And if it doesn't, I wouldn't push it, because some bodies don't do well on prolonged fasting. So let's get right to the foods, the 3 foods. Number 1 is organ meats, specifically liver, or if you don't like it, I would take it in a supplement. Here's the thing about liver. Potentially you can consume too much liver, but if you're consuming like maybe 2 ounces or 3 ounces, you're not going to have a problem. But if you're consuming a lot every single day, that could be a problem. And just as an interesting side note, some people have this idea that if I consume organ meats like liver, I'm going to be getting a lot of saturated fat. Actually, no. Organ meats are very low in fats. Number 2, you want to do more animal protein. Beef, you can do fish and stuff like that, but you want to make sure you have enough of that raw material. And number 3, shellfish for your zinc and copper ratios. But shellfish also has selenium, it has all the trace minerals. I'm talking about shrimp, scallops, crab, lobster. So as I went through this video, you might have had certain light bulbs go off on why you potentially could be deficient in some of the factors. Now, if you have not seen this video on folate, you should probably watch this one next, because if you have this problem, then you need to know about that. And I put that video up right here, check it out. Now, I've talked about this topic, I think 2 years ago at my summit. It may be in other videos, but I wanted to create one video just on this one topic because it's actually very, very important. I think you're going to find it very, very interesting. But folate, vitamin B9 deficiency has the potential to cause DNA damage, which can then lead to cancer. When you go to the hospital to get an x-ray, do you have any concern about getting x-rays or a CAT scan? Do you mind them taking an x-ray? Does it bother you? And if the answer is yes, then the question is why? Why are you concerned about getting x-rays? Well, probably because it has radiation, correct? Did you realize that a folate deficiency creates the same damage as ionizing radiation from x-rays? Yes. There's an interesting story about this by Professor Bruce Ames. I put a link down below for that. But folate is a vitamin that is a coenzyme. So it's a helper enzyme specifically to help you make RNA and DNA. So RNA is a copy of DNA, and DNA is the blueprints that are in your cells that are the instructions to make the entire body. So when a person is deficient in folate, not only are you going to get all sorts of DNA breaks and damage, but it's also going to impair the DNA repair process, which can then lead to cancer. Now, here we have the DNA, the blueprints of your body. These blueprints actually are the building blocks for your all your body tissue. Now, what we're looking at is these blueprints going through this amazing machine. You have this machine that is like a zipper, and it's unzipping these 2 little strands that are connected called DNA. And this zipper is spinning at a speed that's equivalent to a jet engine. And what's happening here is your DNA is being copied in a very interesting way. One strand is going one way, but it's not just copying a piece of paper, it's copying something in 3 dimensions. Fascinating. And on top of everything else, you have several layers of error correction or proofreading going on. So it's kind of like this little program that will scan the code to look for errors. And it's extremely accurate. And if there is an error, another unit will come in there and fix it. So there's several types of errors that can happen. And sometimes it'll have to cut out a section and replace it. And other times they can just manipulate the code a little bit to make sure it's exact. So as you can see, this DNA repair mechanism is simply awesome. And just by a simple vitamin deficiency, like a folate deficiency, you're going to create massive errors in this mechanism. And these errors can lead to all sorts of diseases. So I hope this demonstration gave you a little more motivation to eat healthier.